Mlefe. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. I believe it's appropriate this morning to say good morning ACJ and not DCJ anymore.
Good morning to you.
I thought you had enough on your plate as it is.
Yeah, well, at least with the completion of the hearing of oral evidence and with the group of people that are helping me with the analysis of evidence, it makes it possible to carry out my functions. A lot of people were thinking that it's a new appointment, but it's not an appointment. It's just that if you are Deputy Chief Justice and the Deputy Chief Justice is away, in terms of the law, you are required to perform the functions of the Chief Justice as acting Chief Justice without being appointed. It's automatic unless you are not available, in which case then you don't. Yes, so I had to explain to a lot of people who were sending me messages to say congratulations, say no, it's not an appointment. But thank you. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Mr. Nair.
Morning, ACJ.
Thank you. All right. I think let's do the oath again and then we can continue. Registrar, do you want to administer the oath, please?
Will you still be taking the oath?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your full names for the record.
My full names are Desmond Nair.
Do you have any objection to taking the prescribed oath?
No, I don't.
Do you consider the oath binding on your conscience?
Yes, I do.
Do you solemnly swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
Help me God.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ms. Mlefe, do you want to continue from there?
Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may, perhaps just before we commence.
Yes.
I have this morning at 9:30 discovered on my email inbox an email that we received from Mlefe last night at 11:03.
Yes.
Adding to the existing bundle of documents that's in front of you as T23, three more statements, being two affidavits of Mr. Beju dated the 9th of April 2019 and the 16th of August 2019, and a further affidavit of Mr. Mtenjwa dated the 16th of September 2019.
Yes.
I have not seen this until 9:30 this morning. I have quickly contacted Mr. Nair to just discuss this with him. We have previously been made possessed of it as a result of happenings in front of the Magistrates Commission. So it is not novel or new, but it raises certain issues. You would know from the evidence so far presented that there is some substantial factual disputes between the evidence of Mr. Beju, Mr. LaRue, and Magistrate Nair. We have not consulted on it. I have spoken to Mr. Nair. We are ready to proceed. We don't want to delay the process, but to the extent that it may occasion us the need to have the matter stood down to consider, Mr. Nair will indicate when that happens.
Yes.
There's also a matter of further substance that arises from that, and that is the possession of the Commission's the Commission's possession of these affidavits. We believe they form part of what was a disciplinary proceedings in front of the Magistrates Commission, and we're not sure how the Commission became possessed of it. It also triggers the issue of whether or not, if there are factual disputes, those should be dealt with by way of an application for cross-examination of these witnesses, like we've done with Mr. Leroux. But I don't want to derail these proceedings. I think we should proceed. We will consider our position, and to the extent that Mr. Nair is uncomfortable with proceeding, dealing with these affidavits, he will indicate so, and then we may seek an adjournment for that purpose. But we are ready to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so just to sum up, as I understand you, you are saying that there are these new documents that have been obtained by the Commission and have been furnished to you. You have not had a chance to consult with Mr. Nair about them, but he is aware of them. He may be asked on them. To the extent that he is comfortable, he can deal with them and give answers. To the extent that he might not be able, he will indicate, in which case there might be a need for an adjournment for you to consult with him.
That is indeed our position. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Ms. Molefe, do you want to say anything about that?
Please, Chair. Chair, the three affidavits, two of the affidavits are Mr. Beju's statements that were referred to by Mr. Nair during our previous session. The third affidavit is a statement by Mr. Matendra, which is a statement made to you, Chair, in terms of Regulation 10.6. Mr. Matendra does not implicate Mr. Nair. All he does is he deals very briefly with how he understood the arrangement between Mr. Nair and Mr. Beju.
Yeah. Where do I find them in here? What page are they?
So the first statement, Chair, it starts at, if you go to page 302.
We are using BOSASA Panel 5.
Yes, Chair.
And what page? 202.
302, Chair.
302.
Yes. And they go all the way up until page 326.
Okay, let's take them one by one. 302 to 303. That's a statement of Mr. Beju.
Yes, Chair.
And then page 306 is the beginning of an affidavit by Mr. Matendra, and that goes up to that goes up to 324. And you said it's an affidavit that Mr. Matendra furnished to the Commission in compliance with a direction issued by me in terms of Regulation 10.6. Is that right?
Yes, Chair. And Chair, you skipped the second affidavit of Mr. Beju that appears at page 304 to 305.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, and which one of these two did you say Mr. Nair referred to already in his evidence previously?
He referred to both of them, Chair, but he dealt in detail with, he really dealt with the conflicts of the version in those statements. So
okay.
Those are the two statements we received from Mr. Nair. And then the third statement, as I mentioned, Chair, is that of...
Did you say you received them from him?
Yes, Chair.
The two Beju statements?
Yes, Chair.
Oh, okay, okay. So at least that is the answer to his counsel's inquiry about how the Commission got them.
Yes, Chair.
And then Mr. Matendra's one is an affidavit that was sought from him by the Commission.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right. All right. No, that's fine. I believe we can start. Mr. Nair, are you ready?
I'm ready, Chair.
Thank you very much. Continue, Ms. Molefe.
Thank you, Chair. Today we will be continuing with the evidence of Mr. Desmond Nair, as has already become apparent. His evidence relates to the allegations pertaining to the special projects in the BOSASA workstream. I'd just like to summarize Mr. Nair's evidence this far, Chair.
And maybe before you do that, just for the public, let's mention that we are just in regard to Mr. Nair, we are just completing evidence that he started giving on Wednesday evening, but we had to adjourn because of the curfew. So we are just completing his evidence that otherwise would have been completed on June 30. Yes, okay.
Correct. And his evidence relates to the special projects in the BOSASA workstream. In summary, Chair, Mr. Nair has conceded that security cameras were installed at his private residence, but he says that this was pursuant to a private agreement between himself and Mr. Beju. And he says that the agreed contract amount was approximately 50,000 Rand. To this end, Chair, Mr. Nair has testified that he made an offer to Mr. Beju to assist him with, firstly, CCTV cameras, secondly, with the electric fence if it needed repairs, and thirdly, with the alarm if it needed repairs. Mr. Nair states that the cameras were installed on the 4th of October 2016. He has further testified that contrary to the terms of their agreements, Mr. Beju had placed the hard drive and monitor of the cameras in what Mr. Nair has referred to as an undercover garage. And he says that the agreement was that Mr. Nair would be able to see the feed from the cameras in the TV in his bedroom, and that he would be able to rewind and fast forward the recording from the cameras. Mr. Nair then further stated that Mr. Beju, that he had made several attempts over a couple of months to get hold of Mr. Beju so that he could remedy the breach, but that Mr. Beju either didn't take his calls or would tell him that he would get back to him, which Mr. Nair says never happened. Mr. Nair then told you, Chair, that he has left this equipment in a non-functional state. Now, insofar as whether or not there is an implied influence of having taken advantage of the involvement of BOSASA or its subsidiary being involved in the work at the court where Mr. Nair sits, Mr. Nair's evidence so far is that as the Chief Magistrate, he plays no role whatsoever in the awarding of contracts. And Mr. Nair has also testified that his involvement has only been in what he referred to as a steer co, in terms of which he would engage with stakeholders and some service providers insofar as the progress of work by the service providers. He further stated that magistrates do not have approval functions in respect of work that should be done, as that falls within the ambit of the court managers and facilities. Chair, to this end, Mr. Nair further testified that where a decision had to be taken by the court manager would merely seek his opinion. And then he finally testified, Chair, that by the year 2011, he had already delegated the function of chairing the steercom to his most senior magistrate. So that is in essence Mr. Nair's evidence so far. Mr. Nair, you confirm that I've summed it up correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay.
Sounds about correct. If I may just add, in respect of the purchase, agreed purchase price of the equipment, I indicated that it was a maximum price of 50,000. In other words, you can go up to 50,000. And then in respect of the complaint about the shoddy, pathetic workmanship, apart from the fact that I not forward wind visuals on the TV in my room or anywhere else in the house, and I would have had to leave the house to the undercover garage to do so, which further put me at risk. This was contrary to the express terms of our agreement. There were no visuals on the TV at all. So if they had they been visuals, that would have been one issue. They would have been visuals, but they would not have been recording and rewinding facilities. But in addition to my not being able to rewind, forward wind, and see what's going on in the preceding hour or 5 minutes or whenever, there were no visuals at all in my home from the installation of the cameras. So it was just cameras put, and the feed into the house did not display any visuals. And I said that in my evidence on Wednesday.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Continue,
Now-
Mr. Griffin.
Okay. You have told the chair that Mr. Baiju had introduced about 2 people that he referred to as his boys who would be assisting him with the security upgrade at your house, correct?
I didn't say he introduced them to me. He was in their presence. He came to my house with these 2 gentlemen, and he left me with the impression that he would be managing it or forming the undertaking as we had agreed, and he would be assisted by the 2 technicians. And there were 2 technicians in the yard, and I formed the impression that it would be 2 or 3 of them that would be helping Mr. Baiju. I did not meet the gentlemen. They were in the vehicle outside.
And do you know what their names were?
No, I didn't meet them. I didn't talk to them. Mr. Baiju sat in my lounge for about an hour. He was in the presence of my wife and I. I saw the gentleman in the vehicle when he arrived, and I saw the gentleman in the vehicle when he exited the house.
Okay. Now, can I refer you to page 252 of the bundle?
While you are going there, Mr. Nair, may I just confirm that my understanding of your evidence on Wednesday was correct, that your arrangement with Mr. Baiju, you understood, in terms of that arrangement, you understood that it was going to be Sondolo which was going to be carrying out the installations, or is the position that you thought Mr. Baiju was going to do this in his private capacity?
The latter is correct, Chair. This was between Mr. Baiju and I, and they were.
Okay.
Yes, it was not on the understanding that Sondolo would be doing it. I had nothing to do with it.
Yes, but your coming into contact with Mr. Baiju, was it as a result of work that Sondolo was doing for the court, or did you know him independently, or did you know him independently of Sondolo?
No. When the court burnt in 2010, Sondolo was the camera CCTV company that was at the court. I met him in 2010, and there were steercom meetings where the stakeholders would be present and a few of the service providers would be present. Mr. Baiju would have been among the service providers in 1 or 2 of those meetings.
Okay.
Subsequent to that, over a period of say 6 to 7 years, from 2010 to 2016, I would see Mr. Baiju because he was like as good as a child in my house. I mean, he was an employee of a service provider, like a cleaner is an employee of the service provider, the cleaning staff. And then I would see him from time to time, maybe 2-3 times a year. He would come into my office just to greet me. Hello, Mr. Nair, how are you? How's things? Nothing to do with work that Sondolo did. If there was something that related to the work that Sondolo did at the expense of repetition, Mr. Baiju's place and whoever his principals were, they would start on operational issues with the court manager and with the facilities. If there was a matter that was really necessary, or it was necessary for a matter to be brought to the attention of stakeholders, then it would be brought to a meeting and there would be consensus reached. At that point, I would perhaps see him. But My familiarity with him arose from the fact that he was frequently on the floor. I saw him often, and I got to know him personally.
Yeah. Okay, Ms. Molefe?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Nair. Can you please turn to page 252? Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm referring you to paragraph 9 of your statement.
Yes.
In fact, paragraph 10, pardon me.
Yes.
You say that the transaction you entered into was strictly between yourself and Mr. Beju. And you say that you've never spoken to know Mr. Wasi or any of the Sondolo directors. Then in the last sentence, you say that I will not dispute that Mr. Matendra may have attended meetings at my office after the court burned in 2010. Now, I would like to, at this point, refer you to Mr. Matendra's statement. Chair, this is the statement I referred to earlier, which
Yes.
I'm going, your leave, Chair, to have the statement tendered into evidence as T23.7.
What page?
At 306, Chair.
Yes. This is Mr. Matendra's affidavit. You are asking that it be admitted as an exhibit and marked as exhibit what?
T23.7, please, Chair.
T23.7.
Yes, please.
The affidavit of Mr. Sarom Smangaliso Trevor Matendra, which starts at page 306, will be admitted as an exhibit and will be marked as exhibit 23.7. Okay.
Mr. Nair, can you go to page 312?
Well, if my pages are not numbered, if you can take me to the page of the statement itself is page 8 and what paragraph?
All right, the statement itself is written there as page 7.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I'm taking you to paragraph 16 of that statement.
Yes.
Now, this is Mr. Matendra's version insofar as the installation at your house.
Yes.
And he's replying to the allegations of Mr. Leroux. He says
Yes.
there that all of the affidavits seek to implicate me in the installation of a security system during or about 2016 at the home of Mr. Desmond Nair, who was at the time the Chief Magistrate of Pretoria, in brackets he calls it the Nair installation. 16.2, he says the Nair installation was previously the subject matter of an inquiry conducted by the Magistrates Commission. I provided that commission with the following statement, and he goes on to quote that particular statement. He says, I am a major male and a senior executive of Global Technology Solutions Proprietary Limited, previously known as Sondolo IT, a member of the African Global Operations Proprietary Limited group of companies, in brackets AGO. I am informed that the Magistrates Commission is investigating allegations made by Mr. Richard Leroux in an affidavit deposed to during the course of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, Corruption, and Fraud in the Public Sector, including organs of state. I do not have direct knowledge of the allegations. Then says, GTS held a contract for the maintenance of security at the Magistrates Court in Pretoria. Overleaf, he then continues and says, I attended meetings with officials in the Department of Justice, including from time to time the Chief Magistrate of Pretoria, Mr. Dennis Nair, to discuss operational matters pertaining to the agreement under which GTS has been contracted by the Department of Justice. In passing, and at one such meeting, the precise date of which I cannot recall, one of the GTS managers, Mr. Beju, brought to my attention that the Chief Magistrate had concerns for his safety and was unhappy with the performance of the security system then installed at his private home. Upon the request of Mr. Beju, I agreed to an evaluation of the existing security system by GTS. Save for agreeing to the aforesaid evaluation, I had no involvement in or knowledge of the installation of security system at the private home of Mr. Nair, whether by GTS or anyone else. The first time I learned of any such installation having apparently been undertaken by GTS was when disclosures to that effect were made during the course of the State Capture Commission. I deny the hearsay allegation of Mr. Leroux that I instructed Mr. Agrizi to do anything with regard to the security installation at the private home of Mr. Nair. In passing, I point out that Mr. Agrizi, as the Chief Operating Officer of AGO, rarely, if ever, took instructions from executives within NGO, and certainly he would not have done so from me. Then in the body of his affidavit to the Commission at paragraph 16.3, he says that he confirms the correctness of the above statement. Now, do you wish to comment in respect of the quoted paragraph 4 of the statement to the Magistrates Commission, insofar as Mr. Matenja alludes to having met with you from time to time to discuss operational matters pertaining to the agreement under which GTS had been contracted by the Department of Justice?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Molefe. Now, as I've indicated in my statement, at paragraph 10,
yes,
the last sentence, I will not dispute that Mr. Matenjwa may have attended meetings at my office after the court burnt in 2010. So you will recall, Chair, I did indicate to you that after the fire, it became my responsibility to show judicial leadership. You know, when a court burns, Chair, not only is it a disaster, it requires leadership to get that court to run again. And up until today, the Pretoria court has not been refurbished or renovated. I met with stakeholders, and I also met with service providers in huge meetings. Initially, for the first month or so, at the police station on the high up in one of the floors, there would be between 30 and 40 people in those meetings. And the persons who would significantly contribute to the discussion would be my stakeholders, being the prosecutors, the administration staff and their management, and the interpreters. Of course, the court orderlies and the police as well. Stakeholders such as those that were going to be involved in restoring the air conditioning, those that were going to be involved in putting up the prefab walls in the unburned portion, and those that were involved in security would from time to time attend those meetings. Hence I say, if Mr. Matenjwa had attended a meeting of that nature in 2010, I will not dispute that. I can't say that he was not there. What I can comment on is that in 2016, I cannot recall meetings with Mr. Matenjwa 6 years down the line to discuss operational matters. Chair, as I indicated in my earlier evidence, I handed over this responsibility to the most senior magistrate after about a year. I took the responsibility as head of the private law section for a while, maybe 2 or 3 years. My office was upgraded from chief magistrate to cluster head around 2014. And that takes me to a level of policy issues. So from a governance point of view, you function as a chairman of the board, if I can draw that parallel. You've got nothing to do with the work of the executives, who are the senior magistrates and operational individuals. So it became even more vague for me to meet service providers for operational issues. And then from the last term in 2015, JP Mlambo had requested me to engage with JP Makhoba to act in the High Court in Polokwane. And I continued acting in the High Court in Polokwane from the first term in 2015 right through until the end of 2016. And thereafter in 17 and 18, I remained for 80% of the time in the High Court. In other words, for those 3 years and 1 quarter, I must have spent 70 to 80% of the time acting. So I did not have anything to do in 2016 with operational issues that would have involved Mr. Mathenjwa. And my discussions with Mr. Beju with regard to the installation at my home, because I knew him so well, and because I offered him the work, and he accepted the offer, it had nothing to do with anybody else. And I was alive to the fact that Mr. Beju was an employee of a service provider. I could have no dealings with his principals or the directors of the company. Indeed, Chair, I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who they were. The department would change or would award contracts on a yearly or every 2 years to different service providers for different functions. If we had cleaning staff for 1 year, the contract would change without me knowing. I'd find new cleaning staff or new security people at the court, and I would be introduced to the floor manager and perhaps sometimes one of the members of that service provider company. Obviously, the person is going to has been awarded some kind of work in the court. You will come and meet the head of office. I'm the father figure of that office. No different if there were such contracts awarded at a hospital and you would go and meet the superintendent general or the most senior surgeon. So this meeting that Mr. Mathenjwa refers to, or the meetings that he attended with officials of the department, including from time to time the Chief Magistrate of Pretoria, Mr. Dennis Nair, that alone will tell you my name is not Dennis. He simply didn't know me well enough to know my correct name when he deposed to this affidavit. And that's these meetings that he refers to, I'm unaware of, and they did not happen.
Yeah, okay. Ms. Molefe?
Thank you. Then at the quoted paragraph 6 of Mr. Mathenjwa's statement, he says that in request by Mr. Beju, Mr. Mathenjwa, agreed to an evaluation of the existing security system by GTS. Do you have any knowledge about any discussion between Mr. Mathenjwa and Mr. Nair insofar as the evaluation itself?
You mean Mr. Beju?
Mr. Beju, pardon me, thank you.
Is that paragraph 6, Ms. Molefe?
The quoted paragraph 6.
Yeah. Well, I was not aware. Mr. Beju at no point told me that at any point in the 5 personal discussions with me, 2 at my office and 3 at my home, and in the over 10 telephonic discussions from me to him, leaving those from him to me, at no point did he tell me that he had engaged Mr. Mathenjwa or Agrizi or Mr. Watson or anybody else. I didn't know these names. When I heard Mr. Leroux mentioning these names on the 31st of January, I could not, I didn't know these people. And hence I say, if such individuals were part of the group's large gatherings in 2010, I would not know. When I say know, I mean know well enough to sit at a restaurant and say, hello, Mr. Agrizi, how are you? Oh, I remember you. No, I didn't know them. And to answer your question, at no point did he mention Mr. Mathenjwa. So,
yes, Ms. Molefe.
Now, you've told the chair that, in your understanding, this was purely a private agreement. Did
Yes.
Mr. Baju ever mention to you having his own company?
No, no. No, he didn't. I asked him to do this for me personally because, Mr. Chair, this man was on the floor. He was the project manager in charge of the cameras. He was checking on the technicians. So he would know how the installations work. He would know who the suppliers were. And I engaged him on that basis. When he came to my home, he indicated to me that he would source the goods from the suppliers himself at cost. So this was something that was purely between Mr. Baju and I, not because he had some other company. It would be no different, Chair, if my cousin's husband, who worked for a large air conditioning company, I had approached him and asked him whether he could assist me with air conditioning because he knew where to get it, he knew how to fit it. Come and help me on a weekend and do that. That doesn't mean that he must have had his own company. So, no, this was with Mr. Baju. I'm unaware if he's got his own company. I didn't engage him with his company.
All right. So when he said that he would source the goods himself from suppliers, did the two of you have any arrangement insofar as a prepayment or deposit of any kind?
No, ma'am. What had happened was Mr. Baju had engaged with me during August. I started these discussions with him in July. He came to my home in August, and when he left my home, the understanding was that Mr. Baju was still sourcing the equipment, and he was doing, let me say, his homework. There was a long span of time, about 4 weeks, when I hadn't heard from Mr. Baju at all. In fact, I had given up hope thinking this guy was fooling around. When Mr. Baju called me at the end of September 1st or 2nd of October to tell me that he would be ready to start the job the next week, I was very excited because I was still busy with that lengthy trial involving the petrol bombings in Sekokune and Tukakomo. And I was still glad, I was very glad that he had eventually come to the party. I had placed my complete faith and trust in him that I would let him proceed and we would discuss the issue of the prices, etc., after he had done the job, trusting that he would not exceed the amount of 50,000. He knew the briefing that I had given him. It was simply to put on, install cameras, repair the fence where necessary, check the alarm and repair where necessary. I didn't ask him for a spacecraft or anything.
So he was to obtain all these equipments at his own cost, and you would later repay him.
Well, that is how we proceeded on the understanding, and hence the view that I held that it was agreed that he would perform, and thereafter I would render performance. Because at the time that he called me to tell me he was going to start the next week, and when he called to say that he was starting on the, he didn't mention that this is the price, this is what I have in mind. It was based on trust. He had taken a very long time, and I said, go ahead. So the understanding would have been, do the job and I'll pay you later.
All right. Now, my understanding of him performing under the contract is that it could be divided into two aspects. The first is him purchasing the equipment, as you say you've agreed. And then the second part is the actual installation. Are you saying to the agreement was that he would purchase the equipment by himself from his own pocket, and that he would then install that equipment only after both the purchase and installation would you pay him the amount of 50,000 rands?
That's correct, Chair. He indicated to me that he knew the suppliers, he would get it at cost, and because he waited so long to start the job and told me that he was going to start the job, I let it proceed on the basis that if he would pay himself, and if he needed money, he would let me know. The problem was when I came back and found that it was a third-grade disaster, for me, the issue of the cost of the equipment and what he installed didn't come to the fore. I called him to say, but this is a mess. Well, to tell him it was not working, not functioning as we had agreed.
So you were not at all involved in choosing the type of equipment that you wanted, the type of cameras that you wanted?
No. I placed my complete faith and trust. This is a man who I knew for 7 years, was dealing with security cameras, installations, fixing. I didn't need myself, as if I was shopping for tiles and a certain color of a tile. I wanted a basic system. And once he agreed to do the job, it was a question of, well, let's get it done and we'll settle it. I was not, I didn't consider it to be something that was, of a huge magnitude. It was a simple installation. In fact, Chair, I have subsequently, insofar as the CCTV, had a parallel system installed at my home for not more than 10,000 Rand. And it was done in a day by 2 people. So this was not going to be rocket science. And I was not asking for something, that I had to spend time. There's an outbuilding being built and I need to go and check it. And where you getting? No.
Ms. Mlefa?
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Beju denies ever having discussed a budget with you. And from your recollection, can you tell the Chair whether you remember if, as according to your evidence, there was ever a distinction made between the cost of the equipment as well as the cost of labor?
No, there was no distinction made. When I indicated to him that I had serious concerns with my security because of the matter in Sekhukhune and because of the type of work I was doing in Polokwane, traveling, etc., I told him I had an amount of up to 50,000 available. I needed this. Can you help me? Beju indicated that it would not be a problem, but he needed to come home and have a look at the house. He came home a few weeks later and we agreed he would proceed. There was no distinction of labor is going to be so much and equipment is going to be so much. As far as I was concerned, gave him the work, do the work, and get done with it.
All right. Now, in his allegations, Mr. Richard Leroux has alleged that the cost of the equipment was approximately 66,384. Can I refer you to page 60 of the bundle? This is Mr. Richard Leroux's supplementary affidavit. In particular, I'm taking you to paragraph 103. Are you there?
Bear with me, ma'am. I just want to find the relevant page.
Page 60.
Yes, ma'am. I see it.
I'm taking you to paragraph 103. There, Mr. Leroux alleges that the cost of the equipment was 66,384 and 94 cents. Do you wish to comment on the cost of the equipment?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Bear with me, Chair. Yeah. Chair, let me start by saying that the invoices do not reflect the correct totals and differ from the value of the equipment as testified to by Mr. Leroux.
Sorry, Mr. Nair. When you are looking at the invoices, you move out of the screen.
Sorry. Chair.
Yeah, so
Yes.
let's make
Okay.
sure that I can see you all the time. Yeah. Okay, continue.
Well, let me start by saying, Chair, Mr. Leroux, when he gave evidence before you on the 28th of January, he set the cost of the project at 200,000 Rand. And when he testified, or when he deposed to his statement in June 2020, he adjusts the cost to be 252,864. Now, when Mr. Leroux testified, the impression I got, hence the shock of my life, because there was no agreement with Mr. Beju to exceed 50,000, that it was about 200,000. It only emerges from this that these invoices reflect a cost of 66,384 insofar as the equipment. And in respect of these invoices, Chair, if I can take you to the actual invoices themselves, you will notice that these invoices reflect the 20th and 21st of September. And attached to the invoices that I was given, there's an invoice also for the 7th of October, which speaks to another amount. Now, these invoices, the two that you are referring to, Ms. Molefe, if I can refer you to them.
Sorry, Mr. Nair, before you proceed, Chair, the particular invoices appear at page 155, all the way to page 157.
Thank you.
Please proceed, Mr. Nair.
These invoices, Ms. Molefe, don't bear Mr. Leroux's signature. And if you look at the bundle that you gave me last night or over the weekend in respect of all the other so-called beneficiaries, it's either Richard Leroux or Johan Fourie. In the ones that relate to the installation at my home, there is no signature by Mr. Leroux or Mr. Fourie. That's one. Number two, if you look at the invoice, which is page 116, Chair.
That's page 155 of the black numbering form.
Yeah. They are handwritten numbers on this invoice. And it's a concern for me that the invoice has handwritten numbers which relate to equipment with no serial numbers and no amounts. So I actually have a problem with this invoice. And when Mr. Leroux deposed to a statement on the 15th of May, 2019, to the police in respect of this matter, he typed out an affidavit, or the affidavit that he signed refers to the equipment in invoices which are not these.
Ms. Molefe, I don't know to what extent the dispute about what the equipment or the installations may have cost, how important it is, but you can ask questions on it if there is something that you would like to highlight.
Yes, Chair. I'd like to deal with the amount of the particular benefit as has been alleged. And that's the reason I'm taking Mr. Nair through these amounts. And as the Chair might have heard, Mr. Nair has just referred to an amount of 252,000. And
Yes.
I would like to invite him to comment on the additional costs in addition to the equipment, also pursuant to dealing with a particular benefit, amount of benefit as has been alleged.
Yeah, okay. How much time would you think you need to reach completion?
Well, I'll be dealing with those costs. Then I'll be dealing with one last aspect. So I think I can be done in half an hour.
I'll give you 15 minutes. Try and do it within 15 minutes.
I'll try to.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Nair, my particular question to you was your comment in respect of the cost of the equipment. Are you disputing the approximate value of the equipment? Or what exactly is your particular dispute in respect of the amount of the equipment?
Well, if the invoices relate to equipment at my home and I can discern that, then it would be much easier for me. The equipment on these two pages, on these two invoices, the 20th and the 21st, I can't discern to what extent and where it ties up with the equipment at my home. And I'm particularly concerned because Mr. Leroux, and I wish, Chair, with your leave, to present to you and to tender into evidence a statement made by Mr. Leroux where he refers to the invoices, and in particular invoice 2475 and invoice 2472614, and there is no reference whatsoever to the serial numbers that are handwritten on the invoices that you have before you, Chair. And I can only assume that that was written in there after the photographs were taken of the equipment at my home.
Maybe Ms. Molefe, to the issue of the invoices and whether they relate to the equipment that was used at Mr. Nair's home could be dealt with by way of written questions that you can send to him, and he can do an affidavit to respond, and he will get a chance to check and see whether the invoices do relate to the equipment used at his home. Would that be fine?
Thank you, Chair. But might I just ask one more question about the cost?
Yeah.
Now, in your opinion, what would have been the cost of the equipment, excluding additional costs such as labor?
Ms. Molefe, as I indicated to you, I had a parallel system installed for under 10,000 Rand. I can't estimate the cost of the equipment that's here because I can tell you the electric fence was not replaced. It doesn't appear to be. There are cameras that are installed and it appears as if the keypad was changed. This figure of 252,000, you will realize, Ms. Molefe, in Mr. Leroux's 8th affidavit regarding this matter. I'm in possession, Chair, of 8 statements by Mr. Leroux in respect of this matter, each one amending and changing the previous. For the first time in the statement that is contained in your bundle, the August 2020 statement there, Mr. Leroux puts the labor at something like 167,000 Rand, and he attributes it to 14 days work with 7 technicians. Chair, this job didn't take more than 3.5 days. I know that because after the first 2 days I was here, I never saw Mr. Leroux at my home. In fact, it's my view that Mr. Leroux was not here at all during the installation. In addition to that, Chair, the work that was, there were no technicians here for that period of time. The inclusion of the technicians is to boost this amount to somewhere near the amount that he testified about. And if I can add as to why Mr. Leroux would not have been at my home, if you look at the date of the signature on the invoices, can I get it, please? Chair, you will note that these invoices, these are not, the 27th of September as the date on which the equipment was collected. Mr. Leroux deposed to an affidavit in March 2019, where he says that he went to Regal Suppliers with 4 men and collected the invoices on that day, being the 27th of September. If you look at where Mr. Leroux was on the 27th of September, you will find that attached to Mr. Mlambo's affidavit are travel and accommodation vouchers for Mr. Leroux and one Mr. Ndo, who he says was in his team, that they were booked in at East London from the 25th to the 27th of September in respect of some other project. And the time on the invoices is around 11:25 when the goods were collected. Mr. Leroux could not have commenced this job on the 27th of September, like he alleges in his affidavit 6th of March. It's a pity, Chair, we don't have that much time.
Those affidavits, those affidavits, you said Mr. Leroux has deposed to 8 affidavits that you have.
Yes.
I would like your counsel and Ms. Mlefe to see whether the commission has got all of those affidavits or not, so that if there are some that the commission doesn't have, you can furnish to us insofar as they are relevant to the issues that the commission is dealing with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, Chair, that Mr. Leroux,
the point you have made about him being in East London with at least one of the members of his team that you say he said he went to Regal with, that would be important. But I must also point out that I had evidence of Mr. Leroux, I think maybe 2 weeks back, as well as Mr. Ngingana. Mr. Ngingana was security installations were made on his house as well by Sondolo or stroke BOSASA, and his story seems to have some similar features with yours. He said the installations were definitely done by BOSASA or Sondolo. That's accepted. But he said the installation of security, those security installations were made as a result of an arrangement that he had made with somebody who was a BOSASA director or employee or official, but he said it was just an arrangement that they had agreed upon. He didn't deny that BOSASA people had installed the security, but his arrangement was with the particular individual. He didn't know that BOSASA or Sondolo would be used. In regard to that matter, Mr. Richards or BOSASA's story or version said was to the effect that those installation, the job took about 20 days. And in that case, Mr. Kingana also said, if I recall correctly, the arrangement he had with the particular official of BOSASA or Sondolo was that the installations should not go beyond either 40 or 50,000 rand, but the invoices that were put up also, I think, reached 200,000 rand and so on. So I'm just mentioning that. You might not be aware of it, but I'm just seeing that in your case, it seems that the invoices are also a lot more, as well as the number of days seem to be a lot more than what may, on your version, may have actually happened.
You're absolutely correct, Jay. Absolutely correct. I was gone to Durban for 2 days. When I came back, this job was practically done.
Yeah.
So
okay,
this 14 days and 7 men is nonsense.
Mm.
With respect, Jay, with respect.
Smulefe?
No, thank you, Chair. You've told the Chair that you did not return the equipment. Is that correct?
Yes, I left the equipment as it was, in the condition that it was, on the understanding that Mr. Beju would come back and rectify and remedy the defects, which he did not do.
And to quote you, you said that you left the equipment in a non-functional state.
That's correct.
Did Mr. Beju or anyone ever seek any kind of payment from you?
Not at all. Not at all. Well, I didn't know anyone else, but Mr. Beju, in the time that I know him, in the discussions before the installation, during the installation, and after the installation, and I've already told you how many times it was, Chair, to the exclusion of anyone else, he showed a lot of, he was a respectful guy. He wouldn't dare, Chair.
All right, and had you ever considered making some sort of reduced payment to Mr. Beju?
No, why would I, Ms. Molefe? In all fairness, if you understand the exceptio non adempliti contractus, where a party has, it is agreed that a party would deliver and perform their part, I don't have to perform my part unless he has fulfilled his obligation. That's reciprocal obligations. Where there's a small, minor issue with the performance, obviously, the other party would be expected to pay. This installation was a botched third-grade installation which did not benefit me in any way, and what's more, further compromised my personal safety, because from those small screens that Mr. Beju left on the device in the undercover garage, it it indicated areas in the house that were inside the residence. And it was accessible through the garage door. There are 3 entrances: the tenant flat, the main automated garage door, and the side door. So he failed to comply with the incidentalia, as I indicated to you earlier in my previous testimony.
All right, can I refer you to page 223?
223?
What is the page number? 223.
Okay. And in particular, Mr. Nair, I'm referring you to paragraph 16 of your statement. There you speak about having called upon Mr. Beju to remedy the situation insofar as the cameras, and you say it never happened. You then go and say that you eventually result from the agreement, and and you subsequently caused the contractual deficiencies in the installation to be remedied by a third party. Now, on your last appearance, you said that the cameras were in a non-functional state. So can you please clarify what the correct position is?
Well, thank you, Ms. Molefe. Indeed, I had the alarm, because it also didn't work, rectified to a functional state after the installation. I also had the electric fence rectified. Insofar as the camera installation, I didn't touch it. And more especially after Mr. Leroux testified on the 31st of January, in light of the fact that there would be concerns that we would, or I would be seen to be interfering with the system, I got technicians to give me their opinions on its non-functionality, and I left it as it was. As I say, I've installed a parallel system to cover myself. But in respect of the CCTV cameras, I didn't touch that system at all.
All right. Now, Mr. Leroux alleges that you made contact with him in relation to an issue you had with the equipment that was installed at your house. I'm going to refer you to his particular affidavit. So if you go to page 61 of Exhibit T21, being Mr. Leroux's statement, he says that in respect of, are you there, Mr. Nair?
I'm here, sorry, ma'am.
What paginated page, Ms. Molefe?
Page 61, Chair.
61.
Yes. And I'm referring Mr. Nair to paragraph 111.
Okay, continue.
Now, Mr. Leroux alleges that on 1 or 2 occasions, maintenance was done for the fence and the CCTV system. And then he says that a proof of his contact with you after the installation in September 2016 in relation to the maintenance of work performed is attached. And in that respect, he refers to a WhatsApp message between you and him on the 3rd of April 2017. The particular WhatsApp message, as he's referred to it, appears at page 159 of the bundle. And there he summarized what the communication between you and him. And it says there that he says that it appears he sent you a message after you tried to contact him. And he, being Mr. Leroux, stated, "Can I call you later? Just busy in a meeting." Mr. Leroux then says your response to that was, "Okay, thank you." Now, do you confirm or deny having had any communication with Mr. Leroux in respect of the maintenance of any of the equipment that was installed at your property?
Thank you, Ms. Molefe. Yes, indeed, I deny having discussed the issue of the installation and maintenance with Mr. Leroux. This is a screenshot of a message on the 3rd of April, 7 months after this installation took place on my account in October and 8 months on Mr. Leroux's account if it happened in September. Now, there was no communication or discussion with Mr. Leroux and I regarding the installation. He speaks about this WhatsApp. I would only assume because he has proper WhatsApp communications from some other beneficiaries which are in the packs, and I've seen them last night. It may well be that, and I can't comment, it may well be that I called Mr. Leroux 7 months after the installation, but it would have been only at Mr. Beju's request and only if Mr. Beju gave me his number. Mr. Leroux doesn't put a context to these, to the message. What you see is actually just a missed call. In all other instances, there are WhatsApp discussions. And it'll be very difficult for me to say for what reason would I have called him, except if there was occasion for Mr. Beju to have, I complained to Mr. Beju, and Mr. Beju asked me to call his technician, in which case I would have. And there was no, obviously, as per the message, Mr. Leroux said, "I'll get back to you," or I will call you back, and he didn't. If Mr. Leroux is being truthful, he will say, "I called Mr. Nair back, and I discussed A, B, C, D with him." You can't attach a screenshot of a missed call and say those are WhatsApp messages. Then, Chair, he contextualizes it. If you look at his June 2020 statement at paragraph 111 on page 23, he explains the reason behind the call from the WhatsApps that are not attached as proof of the maintenance work done on the fence and CCTV. In his statement in June 2020, he's talking about WhatsApps and a fence in June and a CCTV system. In his August statement, he contextualizes this single screenshot with reference to moving of the camera to the television, which confirms that he knew there was a problem with the camera and the television, but he didn't hear it from me, and I would not have brought it to his attention 7 months later.
All right. Do you recall your evidence to the chair that you had tried to contact Mr. Beju over a couple of months?
I do.
So is it plausible that that could have been over a period of 8 months?
I would say, yes, about 6, 7 months in respect of the CCTV problem and the installation of the camera equipment and the lack of visuals.
All right. Now, when you identified your need for additional security at your residence, had you ever brought that to the attention of the Department of Justice?
I did, Ms. Molefe. I raised this issue with Mr. Thabang, who was the person responsible at National Office for the Security of Magistrates. Around June 2016, and I raised this issue of my residential security being a concern to me with the then regional head of the department. She informed me that unfortunately for acting judges, there was no policy in respect of an upgrade of the residential security. There was such in respect of judges. And because there was no policy, if I needed to proceed with it, I would have to submit a motivation which would go to her, and from her then to national, from national to treasury and whatever. So she couldn't assist me.
This interaction with Mr. Thabang was before you engaged Mr. Beju?
Yes.
And was your interaction with Mr. Thabang in writing?
No, I spoke to him verbally, and I spoke to Ms. Dlamini, the regional head, verbally as well.
And did you ever pursue the avenue that was proposed by Thabang insofar as motivating for your need for additional security?
No, it wasn't proposed by Thabang, it was proposed by the regional head. Mr. Thabang indicated that he couldn't assist me. The regional head indicated that because there's no such policy for acting judges or magistrates doing serious crime, I would have to motivate. But I elected to do it privately. It would have been quicker. The red tape and bureaucracy behind motivations for judicial or magistrates in circumstances where there are no policy would have taken a year.
All right. Then
you exceeded your time, Ms. Molefe. You didn't keep an eye on your time. You have exceeded it. Do you want to?
Yes, I need about 2 minutes.
You want to wrap up?
Yes, please. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Nair, you earlier testified that you sat on a committee in which you would give your opinion on certain matters relating to a decision that had to be taken. And I understood this to have been part and parcel of your duties.
I didn't testify that I sat on a committee wherein I had to give an opinion. I testified that I was involved in the steercom, where matters were discussed and consensus-based decision-making had to be taken. My role, insofar as service providers, was merely to provide an opinion to the court manager if he asked, and my views and for suggestions if it impacted on court operation. I didn't sit in a committee wherein I had to express an opinion. When you are chairing meetings involving stakeholders at a court, you take consensus-based decision. You listen to everybody's input, and only once there's consensus do you take a decision. Indeed, from time to time, the court manager would approach me and indicate that there's a problem with the water in the building, and would ask my opinion. Indeed, particularly because of the fire, the court managers or the court manager would engage me often in relation or with regards to the operation of the court.
Okay, but in essence, you could give an opinion.
Well, I could give an opinion to the court manager, and I could provide my opinion in a large gathering, as any chairperson would also provide an opinion. But it would merely be an opinion.
And could your opinion sway the court manager in a particular direction?
No, the court manager was not bound by my opinion. He would come to me and ask my view on something, and I would tell him. But this is my view. For example, if there was a question of access control and turnstiles, or if there was a question of a number of portable air conditioners that had to be allocated among all stakeholders, if he spoke to me privately and said to me, Mr. Nair, we've got 40 and we need to share it out, and we've taken a decision at a lower level where your senior magistrate chaired, and this was the outcome, and what is your view? I'd give him my opinion. He is not bound by my opinion. No court manager is bound by any opinion.
Yeah. Ms. Malafo?
Yes, have you made any disclosures about the equipment that was installed at your house?
To whom, ma'am?
To anybody in the Department of Justice?
No. This was a private contractual agreement.
And what is the current status of your employment?
I'm currently on suspension following Mr. Leroux's testimony on the 31st.
From which have you been on suspension?
Stop you there, Miss Malafo. I'll stop you there. It's not important to the commission whether he's on suspension or not and how long. But I think you have covered substantially the important issues, haven't you?
I have. My last question, really, Chair, was going to be to ask Mr. Nair if there's any other factors that he wishes to bring to your attention in your consideration of the allegations made against him.
No, Mr. Dorfling is there. I'll ask him if he wants to re-examine. Mr. Dorfling, is there any re-examination you would like to do?
I've got no re-examination. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nair?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, is there something else that you wanted to say that you haven't been able to say?
Thanks, Chair. I would just like to add that in the interest of you getting the full picture, I have discovered attached to Mr. Agreezy's statement, annexures that relate to Mr. Leroux, dated 2017 and 2018, which are two affidavits, wherein he sets out the special project beneficiaries, etc., and he makes no mention of me in both of them. And those were made available to your investigators before I was mentioned.
Yes, no, that's fine. Maybe just to make sure that when your matter is looked into, that aspect is not lost sight of. Maybe you could just do a short affidavit where you draw my attention to that. You put annexures, those affidavit or whatever documents and make the point that you have just made, and then send it to the commission through your lawyers, and Ms. Molefe would become aware of it, and then we'll make sure that it's in the file relating to your matter.
Thank you, Chair.
Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
all
if
right.
I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I think on that score, Mr. Nair has already discussed that in an affidavit, and perhaps we should just again focus the Commission's attention on that affidavit and deal with
Yes,
the
yes,
affidavit.
yes.
I
No,
think
if
it's already
it is,
there. We just need to focus on that.
okay. No, if it is already there, that's fine. That's fine. No, thank you very much, Mr. Dofling. Thank you very much, Mr. Nair. And thank you, Ms. Molefe. I know, Ms. Molefe, you remain because we are now going to deal with the evidence, a re-examination of Mr. Makwetla, but Mr. Dofling and Mr. Nair are now excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to adjourn for about 10 minutes or so to enable Mr. Makwetla and his counsel to come in, and then I'll return, and then we continue. We adjourn.
Recording stopped.
just for the benefit of the public, I mentioned that Mr. Makwetla did previously give evidence before the commission and was questioned by the evidence leader of the commission. But what was left was his re-examination by his counsel. He was due to be re-examined on Thursday evening last week, but we could not get to him because of the early curfew that had to be respected, and that's why he is back today just for that re-examination, which his counsel said might take, if I recall correctly, about 20 or so minutes, or is it 30 minutes?
30 minutes, Chair.
30 minutes, okay, all right. Okay, thank you. You might just want to place yourself on record first again before you proceed.
Thank you. My name is Teboho Musigidi on behalf of Mr. Thabang Makwetla.
Yes.
Chair, we plan on at least revisiting 3 topics.
Mm-hmm.
First topic, we want to deal with the work that was done at Mr. Makwetla's house. Secondly, we want to deal with the parliamentary report. And lastly, Mr. Makwetla would like to discuss, at least with the commission, the relationship he shared briefly with the late Mr. Gavin Watson.
Yes, that's fine. But as you put questions to him, just do remember that in terms of the regulations of the commission, the purpose of re-examination is to clarify issues that might need clarification. So I mentioned that just to say there should not be a revisiting of any issue unless there is something to be clarified.
Yes, Chair. I thank you, Chair, for that. Chair, so the last 2 topics should take less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
What we intend on focusing on, Chairperson, is the work done at Mr. Makwetla.
Yes.
Then, Chair, we will be dealing with the evidence of Mr. Leroux directly. What Mr. Makwetla's complained of is that as much as when he was given a chance to at least to lead his evidence, he was not afforded an opportunity to deal with, at least to comment on Mr. Leroux's allegations, both in his statements and in his testimony. So we just want to deal with that, Chairperson.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I said that. And more so that, remember, Chairperson, at the end of the day, Mr. Leroux is the only person who at least implicates Mr. Makwetla to this state capture, Chair.
No, that's fine. That's fine, yeah.
Yes, Chair, let's get on to it, Chairperson. We'll start with dealing with a statement by Mr. Leroux, which is T3, which the statement also forms part of the invitation to Mr. Makwetla to come to the commission. And the reference is RLR, and we're dealing with at page 009 to 010, wherein he deals with Mr. Makwetla in 3 paragraphs, Chairperson. At paragraph 47 to 50, that's where Mr. Leroux refers to Mr. Makwetla.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
The bundle we are using is BOSASA bundle 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the bundle in front of me. It's paginated. What is the paginated number? That should say BOSASA -03 something. The black numbers on the top left corner of each page.
Yes, Chair, we have that, but right now, Chair, we're dealing with there's 3 bundles that were given to us.
Yes, the one where you are starting with. That's the one I'm looking for.
The one I'm starting with, it's T3. What the chairperson is looking at is exhibit T31. We're looking at T3.
Ms. Molefe, are you able to assist me? I don't.
Yes, Chair. It's at page 33 of the bundle.
Of bundle 3.
Yes, and in particular, my learned colleague is referring you to paragraph 47 all the way to 49.
Okay. Page 33 is part of Mr. Frolick's statement. Is that what he's talking about?
No. So the bundle number BOSASA 05, the page.
Yeah, no, that's a different one. I've got bundle 03. BOSASA bundle 03. That's the bundle that was placed before me. So it should be bundle BOSASA bundle BOSASA 5.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, I've got it. And what's the page number? Is it 33?
Yes, Chair.
Hmm?
Yes, Chair, page 33 at paragraph 47 to 49.
Okay, I've got it.
Okay, sorry, Chair. We're given 3 different volumes. So we've got T3, T31, and T21.
Look at the spine. They should have something written BOSASA bundle 05, BOSASA bundle 03. So when you make a reference, it's better to start by telling me which bundle, and then you can tell me the exhibit number. But actually, most of the time, I don't want the exhibit number because it gets confusing. If you tell me the bundle, and then you tell me the page at the top left-hand corner, the black numbers, that takes me to the page.
Noted, Chair.
Yes, okay. So I am at page 33 of bundle, BOSASA bundle 5.
Yes, Chair, we're dealing with 3 paragraphs.
And that is Mr. Leroux's affidavit that starts at page 25. Okay. You can continue.
Mr. Makwetla, are you okay with that?
I thought I was okay. And let me just confirm, the document you are referring to is Mr. Richard Leroux's affidavit, isn't it?
Yes. This is the first one that was referred to as. I think your copy is like mine, should say RLR 009.
Yes. And on page 9, paragraph 47 to 49, you're saying?
That's the one we're referring to.
Yes, I'm with you.
Thank you. Now, Chairperson, without wasting the time of reading what is said there, but basically what Mr. Leroux is talking about is the work that he attended to do at Mr. Makwetla's house. And at paragraph 48, he said, I attended to the following work. Maintenance was done on the electric fence and alarm systems after the installation. And then on the next page, he says, full electric fence, alarm system new, IP CCTV camera system, Cat 6 server, offsite monitoring capabilities. And then on paragraph 49, he says all of that to the total value of approximately 350,000. Now, Mr. Makwetla, before I ask for your comment on that, can you just maybe refresh the chair and the commission as to what kind of work do you need to be done at your house?
The work that I asked for to be done at my house were 2 things. First, it was the installation of the electric fence. And secondly, it was the repairs to the alarm system, which got damaged when renovations were done to the house.
Thank you. Now, my second question is, have you ever discussed with Mr. Leroux at any point, at least before this, before he visited your house, as to what needed to be done at your property?
No, I have not had any discussions with Mr. Leroux regarding this job. The person that I spoke to is Mr. Gavin Watson. Mr. Leroux, my understanding was that he was not just a technician who executed the job, but he was the leader of the team of 3 people that he was that was in charge of the job. So I only met him on, I think, 2 occasions, and very briefly as they were working on site. Chair, I don't know if...
Yes. Yeah. Counsel for Mr. Makwetla, unmute yourself or something like that. You seem to have disappeared. I think he can't hear us. Let's wait and see whether he comes on board. There is something that says connecting. Registrar.
Maybe, Chair.
Oh, there he comes back. Okay. Oh, then he disappears. Okay. Are you back?
Apologies for that, Chair. As it were, technology just let me down. I just collapsed and disappeared, Chair. I apologize.
Okay, okay. But you did hear Mr. Makwetla's response?
Indeed, so, Chairperson. Yes,
Okay.
for what he had actually needed to say. And I think he did refer that he wanted an electric fence and a repair to his alarm system, which was damaged due to some renovations that were happening at his property, Chair.
Yes, I think he said he met Mr. Leroux once or twice while they were doing work in his house. But the person that he used to deal with was Mr. Watson in regard to the matter. Okay, you may continue. It looks like there are technical challenges. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Oh, okay. Let's continue. Oh, counsel for Mr. Makwetla, I'm told that you need to unmute yourself.
Can I be heard, Chair?
Now we can hear you, yeah.
Thank you so much. Apologies for that, Chair.
Okay, all right. So let's continue.
Yes. Chair, I would like to refer you to the testimony of Mr. Leroux as to what he said when he appeared before you in regard to Mr. Makwetla.
Yes.
Refer you to day 44, Chairperson, of the commission, and it's on the 31st of January, 2019.
Is that transcript in this bundle or not?
Chairperson, we've been given this as part of it was attached to the statement by Mr. Leroux.
Yes, Ms. Mlefe?
The transcript is not in the bundle. I think my learned friend is referring to it because it was attached to a Rule 3.3 notice.
Oh, okay, that's fine then. You can go ahead.
Thank you.
Chair, because we're going to refer to it at length, we will need you to at least follow us. I'm not sure if Chair can follow us.
Well, I can follow. I will listen. Okay. I will see if it becomes necessary that I get a copy, but I think you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Makwetla, can you turn to page 115 of the said transcript?
Yes, I'm there.
For ease of reference, yes, the one that is attached to the rule, the notice in terms of rule 3.3. Yes, you will see there, right on top, where Mr. Leroux answers. Well, at least Ms. Molefe first deals with paragraph 47, 49, which you just read, and most importantly, Mr. Leroux says the property belongs to Mr. Makwetla, and then Ms. Molefe asked if he knows the position that you hold. And Mr. Leroux responds to say that he does not, or he did not know at that point what position you held. And then importantly, he is asked by Councillor Molefe, can you recall when this project was undertaken? Can you follow, Mr. Makwetla?
Yes, I can follow. I can follow.
Thank you. And then you will see that Mr. responds to say to the chair that I cannot recall the dates or the months that on the question that is being asked. And also, he's been asked at whose instructions was this project undertaken? And he answers there that it was done through the instructions of Mr. Gavin Watson directly. Now, the question that I want to ask you is that, did you know Mr. Leroux directly before coming to your house?
No, I didn't know Chairperson Mr. Leroux before he came to my house at all. And maybe while still at that point, I want to just flag this to the commission and to the chairperson of the commission that in his own admission, Mr. Leroux did actually not know where I was working, what position I was holding where I was working, not only at the time when he executed the job, but even at the time when he appeared before the commission, he still was not sure of this person called Mr. Makwetla, that he had come to the commission to testify against, that he is involved in state capture, he's involved possibly in corruption, he's involved possibly in fraudulent activities. He did not, the chair even asked him, following up on the question that was asked by Advocate Molefe, to confirm sorry?
We'll get there, yes, we'll get there. Perhaps what you should do then, sorry to interject, on page 117 of the same transcript.
Yes.
Yes, this is what you are referring to, where the chairperson asked a very specific question. The chairperson says, do not. I mean, what was wrong? What needed to be done? That is what I want to know. At the bottom of the page, do you see that?
Yeah.
At page 117.
No, Mr. Musikide, and chairperson, my apology. I am actually looking at a different transcript because the pages that you are referring to do not tally with the one I have before me.
Okay, what does your page say at the bottom?
My page at the bottom is page 95 of 144. And this is a transcript of day 44 of the commission.
Yes, it's the same transcript we're looking at.
Yes.
With a different numbering. Let me see if I can find, for ease of reference for you. It's fine, Mr. Makwetla. I will. Chairperson, we seem to have two transcripts with different numbering. I'm trying to figure out how to assist Mr. Makwetla to follow me. Can the chair just bear with me?
No, that's fine. Or maybe, do you want me to adjourn for 10 minutes and you can try and sort it out, and then I'll come back. And then if you need to be in touch with Ms. Molefe, you can be in touch if she can assist. But that 10 minutes could also be used, Ms. Molefe, if it is possible, to see whether that transcript can be obtained and be emailed to my registrar here. But if there is a delay, we are not going to be delayed by its absence. I should be able to follow. But let's take a 10 minutes adjournment. We adjourn for 10 minutes.
Recording.
Good afternoon. We will resume today's proceeding.
Recording in progress.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, all right. Let's continue.
Thank you, Chair. We have resolved the numbering differences in the transcript, Chair. Just to revisit the question that you were answering, Mr. Makwetla, that I've asked you with reference to a transcript, was that have you met Mr. Leroux prior to him coming to your house, or did you know him in any form or manner?
Yes, as I explained, that Mr. Leroux is a person I got to know when he was going through the job he was assigned to do at my place. And as I said, I think I've met him twice or so. And it would have been once when he was finalizing the installation, and once after the installation and the equipment was not functioning well. I've not met him ever since. I had not met him before. And as I was saying, it is there in the transcript of his evidence that in his own admission, to his best recollection, he did not know me at the time he executed the job, nor did he know me when he was appearing before the commission. He had a suspicion that I'm a deputy minister at the Department of Correctional Services when he was appearing before the commission. And when the chair tried to get certainty of what he actually recollected, what his recollection was, he emphasized to say he did not want to commit himself to something he could not vouch for. He did not know where I worked, what position I held. Now, I may just at this point, if with your indulgence, that this thing has always like really pained me, that I am here before the commission because of Mr. Leroux. And this commission is a commission that deals with state capture, is a commission that deals with corruption, is a commission that deals with fraud in government. The person who says I am guilty of those things does not know where I worked, that even as he was appearing before the commission. What I am trying to make the commission appreciate that this is, the most, funny of cases I have ever come across of such serious allegations against a person you don't even know he would.
Well, I don't know, Mr. Makwetla, whether it's accurate to say that Mr. Leroux says you are guilty of certain things. I doubt that he goes that far. You will be aware that he has given evidence with regard to the installation of security equipment at various people's homes. My recollection is that his attitude and evidence is usually that, look, I'm a technician. I used to get instructed to go and install security equipment at somebody's house. I would not know that person. Sometimes he would say, I was told that we mustn't ask too many questions. For example, I think in regard to the work that he and his team or the people that he got in touch with, if I'm not mistaken, with regard to Miss Mokonyane's home. And I think he said when they went there, at least maybe for the first time, he did not know whose house it was. And they had been instructed not to ask too many questions, I think about the owner and so on. So I'm just saying, to be fair to him, I don't know whether you were attributing to him statements that he says you are guilty of something because you have seen his evidence where he says that, or whether you assumed that he was saying that, because my suspicion is that all he was saying is he got instructed to go and install the equipment in your house. That's what he did.
Chair, I think you are correct. We are correct. And it is what I am not understanding, because no one has come before the commission making allegations of my involvement in state capture, corruption, or fraud. No one. The only reason I'm before the commission is because a technician who was head of a team that installed a security features I asked for came here to say I am among the people who the allegations made is that they are involved in state capture. So I do understand, you know, your point that it is not in his evidence, but it is not in his evidence that I am involved in state capture. But there's no other person who says I'm involved in state capture.
Yes. Well, this is the context, Mr. Makwetla, and you should remember it. You will recall that Mr. Agrizi gave wide-ranging evidence, and some officials connected with BOSASA, including Mr. Richard Leroux and others. But Mr. Agrizi gave wide-ranging evidence, which included allegations of corruption between in dealings that BOSASA had with the Department of Correctional Services, or let me say with the state or some government departments, but particularly with the Department of Correctional Services. He went to town about contracts, how they were obtained, including in some case where he said somebody within the Department of Correctional Services, I forget his name now, an official, was in contact with somebody at BOSASA, or maybe it was Mr. Agrizi himself, where the arrangement was that BOSASA should formulate the specification that should go to the tender documents for some work that was going to be advertised, and tenders were going to be invited. And obviously, BOSASA would formulate the specification in such a way that it suited them. And if possible, try and eliminate competition. So what would happen in due course, therefore, is that after BOSASA had done that, the department and this official would make sure that when the tender documents go out to invite bids, they would go out with this specification that has been formulated by an entity that is also going to put in a bid. That's obviously irregular and unacceptable. So, and you will also recall And that is something that I have said publicly during hearings of the commission, that I was concerned also about the fact that BOSASA continued over many years to get contracts from the state, despite the fact that there were lots of allegations of corruption that were associated with BOSASA and the Department of Correctional Services, but they continued to get contracts, and contracts got extended. So obviously, with the evidence that had been placed before the commission, it was important that the commission, whether there was somebody who says Mr. Makwetla is involved in corruption or not, if it was important for the commission to say which officials or politicians within government got benefits from BOSASA. Under what circumstances did they get them? That's where somebody like you comes in. So in other words, there might not be an individual who says Mr. Makwetla was involved in corruption, or Mr. Makwetla was involved in state capture. But because of the evidence that has been placed before the commission relating to the BOSASA and the state, and in particular correctional services, it became necessary to say, let's try and establish all the public figures who may have had benefits from BOSASA and inquire as to what were the circumstances under which they got those benefits. Did they pay for those benefits, and so on. And with you having been at the time Deputy Minister of Correctional Services, it became even more important to say, this is a Deputy Minister in this department where there have been a lot of allegations of corruption involving BOSASA and this department. But you can also think of Mr. Mantashe. He was not even in government at the time, but he has been asked to come and testify because Mr. Agrizi and some officials of BOSASA testified that he got some benefit. They installed security equipment at his homes. So the commission had to inquire what were the circumstances. And when all the evidence is been given, including your evidence, then the commission can make findings. Was this an innocuous arrangement? Was there something untoward? But that is the circumstances. So you get brought in because the commission wants to know who got benefits from BOSASA, under what circumstances. Is there something untoward or not? You understand now?
I understand, Chairperson, and the Chairperson is correct. So correct. The events or the problems the Chair is referring to are indeed a subject of the SIU report, which was compiled against the Department of Correctional Services. That report was compiled in 2009. Those the issues that the Chair is referring to happened years before I went to that department. I only was appointed to the Ministry of Justice and Correctional Services in 2014. The matters that the Chair is referring to, as the Chair would know, are actually before the courts in another case where the people who were involved in those things are actually arraigned. So my point is that what we are talking about, Chair, it's a very relevant factor because I approached the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services to say the ministry must take responsibility for the legal fees that I have to pay for appearing at this committee, because my understanding is that the only reason why I am appearing here, it is because I was a deputy minister there, but there's nothing else. And the minister decided to be cautious about it, decided to not come to my appeal. It is fine, but as you can see for yourself, Chair, I am actually caught up in something that has nothing to do with me, absolutely nothing to do with me.
Well, Mr. Makwetla, don't go that far. Don't go that far. I'm not sure that it's got nothing to do with you, because the mere fact, the point you are making, and you will remember that this was something that was raised when you gave evidence previously. The fact that it may have been 2014 when you became deputy minister, and I think this patwa installation happened in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
In 2015.
2015.
Yes.
The fact that BOSASA's relationship with the Department of Correctional Services had been going on for a long time, with all allegations of corruption being in the public domain, but still in 2016, it was still having contracts with correctional services and with the state, actually makes the calls for more probing to say, but you being deputy minister of this department, how could you ask this same company about which there is so much talk of corruption with your department? How could you ask that company to have anything to do in your house? So that question, as you will recall, it was raised and you did deal with it. But I'm saying it's a question that I think is legitimate. But the evidence must be weighed when all the evidence is in, because my understanding is that the state only terminated agreements with BOSASA after these things had been exposed in the commission, because then there was the question, how can the state continue? What is going on? Why was BOSASA not blacklisted all along? Why did it continue to have these contracts? Is that because it has connections with politicians? Is that because it has connections with high-ranking officials? So those are the kinds of issues that the public would be asking. And those are the kinds of issues questions that the commission would be bound to ask. And if it did not look into them, it would be failing in its duty. And it is in your own interest and in the interest of other government officials that the commission is able to make findings. And if there was nothing wrong, clear the air once and for all, And it can't do that without listening to evidence from everybody concerned.
Yeah,
I understand. Yes, okay, all right. I just thought I must explain this because Mr. Makwetla was taking a position that seemed to be saying, I don't know what the commission wants from me because I'm really not involved here. So I thought I must clarify this.
Okay.
Thank you,
Chair. I accept the explanation the chair has provided, and indeed, those matters were canvassed during my first appearance before the commission, and I don't think we should go back to that. I think the context is appreciated.
Yes. Okay. No, that's fine.
And to that, I want to just draw the attention of the commission to the statement, Chair, that I made immediately when these allegations appeared against me in the media. I said the following, Chair, and I've got the statement in front of me, that I don't know why the job at my place has been a subject of a confidential discussion by any person in BOSASA, be they employees or managers. Any suggestion that this job was treated differently concerns me. Any member of BOSASA who seeks to use my name to lend credence to their claim in the internal feud at this company will at the end be exposed for their unethical practices and immoral aims. I was so concerned that it appears here that there is something very sinister. Because I just could not make the connection with what was being said about this having been a confidential issue. And it is clear now from the affidavit by Mr. Leroux that when they were coming to my house, they even had to be moving by bounds. If excuse me, that expression is a military thing, that they had to be covering up their approaches to my house, stop at the garage, change clothes. I mean, those are crazy things that I never even thought that this kind of a corporate company could be involved in. But I went further to say, I wish to assure everyone that I am not guilty of any wrongdoing in the entire period during I have been a Deputy Minister at Correctional Services. I have not sought to communicate or influence, not once, any of the department's officials who serve on the structures of the Department of Correctional Services supply chain environment. To ensure that the interests of the broad public are protected at all times, I undertake to approach the Office of the Public Protector to investigate all tenders issued to BOSASA at any other big enterprise during my term in the ministry, and to interview all the officials who were involved in adjudicating these tenders as to whether they ever had any individual discussions of their work with me at any time during these processes. I make this as a public statement, and it was my intention to approach the public protector to actually satisfy the public that these allegations are really spurious allegations.
Yes.
Mr. Makwetla, thank you, Chair. Can we just get back, because I'm worried about the time, just clarify two issues that are left on this topic. Mr. Makwetla, you will see there on page 97 on the transcript, where the chairperson asked Mr. Leroux what needed to be done at your property. And I want to ask you a direct question. Did you request any of these things that Mr. Leroux
as I said before, all of these other things, I never requested them. I requested two things. One, the electric fence, which I did not have, that it be installed. Two, that my alarm system, which was damaged, should be repaired. Those are the services I asked for. The rest of the other things, I have not asked for them.
Do you have any idea where Mr. Leroux could have taken these things from?
No, it is clear in the affidavit of Mr. Leroux, he was given the instruction to do all of this work by Mr. Gavin Watson.
I suppose the question is then, have you informed Mr. Gavin that Watson that you want these things that he mentions?
No, absolutely no. And for what I had asked him to do at my place, the security fence, electric fence rather, and the repair to the alarm system, I asked for a quote for that work. I asked for a quotation for that work.
While we're there, we go to page 99, where we deal with the costs of this project. You will see there, Mr. Leroux, when asked by Advocate Molefe to say, thank you, Chair, and can you recall what the approximate cost was for this project? Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you see the response there too?
That's right.
Yes.
All I can say, Chairperson, with respect to this figure that Mr. Leroux says the job at my base cost, I want the commission, I want to enjoin the commission to, I'm not technically skilled to do a proper reading of some of the documentation provided here. But in the attachments, with respect to different bills that Mr. Richard Leroux paid for equipment that he was using at the different projects he was doing, I would want to direct the commission to exhibit RLR-035, which is it is contained in Annexure RLR1.
Ms. Molefe, are you able to direct me to the right page?
Yes, Chair. The reference to the annexure by Mr. Richard Leroux is RLR6. Mr. Makwetla, is that where you're taking it?
Yes, it's RLR1. That is the annexure, the title of the annexure, and it's T21 RLR035. That would be the page.
Perhaps let's do this. Chairperson, we're referring to it's a supplementary affidavit by Mr. Leroux, and to us it's been given as T21.
Yeah, no, let me
T21.
Exhibit, yes, exhibit T21, and it's a record of the transactions at a vendor called Regal Distributors Trading in Greenstone. Yeah, and I think it's a very helpful document because.
Let me get Ms. Molefe to guide me first on my bundle as to where I find it.
Thank you, Chair. As I was saying, the annexure that Mr. Leroux refers to insofar as the invoices is not RLR1, it's RLR6. So I'm trying to establish whether Mr. Makwetla meant RLR6 or if he specifically wants to take you, Chair, to RLR1.
Mr. Makwetla?
Let me just, according to the file I have, Ms. Molefe, it is a T3 affidavit of Richard Leroux, and it's T21 RLR025. That's where it starts.
All right. In that case, Chair,
and it's a printout. It's just a long printout of transactions for a period of about 3 years, from 2014 to 2017.
Chair,
yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Makwetla. Chair, that would be bundle 5.
Yeah.
Page 65.
Page 65.
Of bundle 5.
Okay. Yeah, I've got page 65. Yes, Mr. Makwetla?
Yeah.
Invoice from Regal.
From Regal, that's right.
It's a statement. Yes.
Yes, it's a long print out that starts from 2014, Chair, to 2017.
Yeah. I just want to finish this. It's addressed to Richard Leroux. Yes, continue, Mr. Makwetla.
Chair, I was saying that I was trying to find out of these many transactions here, which ones would have been of material that was used at my house.
Yes.
The only reliable thing that I could use as a guide are the dates of the invoices, of the transactions.
Yeah.
And the one that sounds a bit relevant of these transactions to purchases that could have had something to do with my house are those of the 9th of February 2015.
2015.
Yes, 2015, the 9th of February 2015. There are several transactions there, about 4 of them. No, actually, 5 of them. Now, these transactions, when I look at them, they include also there, for instance, a fence.
Yeah.
And that fence is 9,309 rands.
Yes, I see that.
That's right, Chair. And the others is an intercom. Yes, an intercom was fitted 2,667. And then what comes after that is not an item, but it says project.
Yeah.
Now you can't buy a project, Chair. I thought that this project would mean, you know, everything that was done in a project in terms of the costing, but you don't buy a project from a vendor. So I would not be sure what that refers to.
Unless, Mr. Makwetla, you and I not being in this sector, don't know, maybe there is something called project something that you can buy and equipment, I don't know. So, but when you are foreign to a sector, sometimes there are words you don't understand.
I submit, Chair. I submit.
Yeah.
Chair, when I look at all of those figures, you can go on and on, put them together, all those figures. They do not tally, they don't give you a total that would be around 300,000 or 350,000, those figures.
Yes.
That is the first thing. But the second thing is that the bill that I got from BOSASA, when Gavin Watson eventually conceded and apologized and gave me the bill, the commission has that bill, is 85,000. And I queried that bill. And the reason, the grounds on which I queried the bill, it is because the bill included things that I did not ask for. And I told Gavin, I have not asked for these things. What you have put there that I've not, that you must remove. I am not going to pay for what I've not. And that's why I paid 25,000, as I explained in my earlier appearance, in my previous appearance, Chair. So what I'm saying is that if the commission could just look at the things that Richard Leroux is saying there and see if they make sense, I would be happy. When I made my affidavit, it was with the understanding that this is a condition for me to be granted the privilege of cross-examining Richard Leroux. Yes. For me, it's not necessary. The information is there. Let the commission just interrogate using its own expertise the information before the commission.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Makwetla, while you're on that, I think you can go to paragraph 60. That will be on page 13. So it's T21 RLR 013. And we paragraph 60.
Whose affidavit? Is that Mr. Leroux's affidavit?
Mr. Leroux's affidavit, Chair.
You say paragraph?
60.
Is that the one starting, I was always instructed?
No, it starts with, I personally attended to the installation together with other 4 technicians.
That affidavit?
It's
yes,
bundle 5, page 52.
Okay. Of course, we are at the end of oral evidence, but it would have been much better if everybody had the same thing. Page 52. Is that page 52 that you gave me, Ms. Mulefe?
Okay.
Yes, yeah, okay, I'm there. Paragraph 60, I personally attended.
Yes, Mr. Makwetla, are you there?
Okay, you can continue. You can continue.
I need you to be there at paragraph 60. This is Mr. Leroux's second statement, or at least supplementary statement that he gave.
I think I know what question you want to put, Mr. Musigiti. I think the paragraph 60 says, Mr. Makwetla, I personally attended to the installation together with another 4 technicians.
4 technicians, yes,
which took us a minimum of 21 days to complete.
I'm there, Chair. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm there. Yes.
Mr. Musigiti, do you want to take it from there?
Perhaps in the interest of time, Chair, I would also want you, Mr. Makwetla, to consider paragraph 61, where he gives a breakdown of the costs that are incurred. And you'll see from there on, he mentions an amount of 151 just being an amount for labor. And he goes and mentions another amount of, I think it's about 21,000 at 61.1.2. No, actually 61.1.3, which are the cost per 5 technicians. And you'll also see that he also mentions another amount which refers to travel costs, that is 61.2. So I want you to give your comment globally from 60 to 61 in the interest of time to say that this type of invoice, first of all, have you been given this invoice? Have you seen this invoice to you? Seen invoice before?
No, I have not been provided favored with an itemized invoice from BOSASA, and I fought over this. When they were demanding 85,000 from me. I said, you itemize your bill. If you don't itemize your bill, I am not going to give you 85,000, because among the things you have done at my place are things that I have not asked for. So it must be clear. The bill must be itemized, because if it's not itemized, I would not see what is it that I was being made to pay for. And that's why I ended up paying 25,000. The manner in which I arrived at that 25,000, I explained it to the commission before. But in relation to this breakdown that is provided here of the bill, there are things that are very, worrying. For starters, Mr. Leroux says he had 5 other technicians.
4 plus him.
Oh, 5. He was the 5th, yes.
Yeah.
There are 2 technicians that Mr. Leroux was working on the project with. He was the 3rd person. That's the first thing. The second point is that they never came there, not even with 2 vehicles. They've always been in 1 panel van. I see here, he says they came there with 3 vehicles. They have never been to my place with 3 vehicles. There's never been more than 3 people, including Mr. Leroux himself, on site when the job was done. So it is some of these things which, clearly says the evidence that he has provided here cannot be relied upon. As I said, I was not there in the other days when Mr. Leroux, especially when he started and did the greater part of the job. I was not there. But I am worried that he is mentioning things that are evidently, to me, from where I sit, absolutely misleading, incorrect.
Can I just the last question on this topic, because I think we're out of time.
Yes.
Mr. Makwetla, had you received that quotation as you have requested before, requesting that at the very least there will be a labor of 150,000? Had you received that, what would have been your comment?
The 150,000, when I saw it here, actually 151,000, it left me baffled, because my calculation was simple conventional logic that on any technical work that is being done, material bought, or let me say the labor charged on the work done can never be half of what the bill of the material used is. On the bill is about 300,000 and he says the labor was 150,000. It means half the amount was labor of a job that needed material of about 150,000. I'm just saying that even when you take a car for a service to a garage, the amount of parts that you will pay for the repair of the vehicle will always be far above the unit of labor employed to fix the car. Now here, we are told that the labor expended on this project that needed material of about 150,000, it's 150,000 worth of hours. I have a serious problem with this. Not even BOSASA themselves in the bill that I got from BOSASA have they. If they said the job costs 85,000, where has the whole 150,000 cost of labor gone to? So what I'm saying is these are the things which I think Mr. Leroux was just padding, stuff here than providing sincere, accurate information about what he did and how it happened.
Mr. Makwetla, just because we are out of time, you had said that you wanted to speak for me.
Mr. Musegidi,
yes,
although there are time challenges, in the end, I do want you to be able to do justice. So if there are important things that you still want to cover, you must tell me.
I'm indebted, Chair. Perhaps one last subtopic on this, and then I want him to speak to you briefly about the parliamentary report. Mr. Makwetla,
maybe may I ask him this question? Do you have any comment, Mr. Makwetla, on Mr. Leroux's evidence in paragraph 60 that the job took a minimum of 21 days to complete?
I do have a view on that, Chair, and my view is that this is totally incorrect, because it took them 1 week to do almost 80% of the job, as I said in my evidence, to say, I came back, I work in Cape Town when Parliament is in session. When I left on Monday of that week, Gavin Watson had said he will send a team to go and do the evaluation of the work to be done. And I was expecting an invoice. I'm sorry, a quotation. A quotation, thank you very much. I was expecting a quotation. When I came back on Friday, the work was done already, 80%. The only thing remaining at the time was that because they could not go into the house, they could not do the necessary connection in relation to the controls of this alarm system. They needed access into the house. And because I only have a person who who assists me in the garden, who lives on the property, he does not have access into the house. That was all that was remaining. 21 days is 3 weeks. I don't know where he gets this 3 weeks from.
Okay, continue, Mr. Musegeti.
Okay. Mr. Makwetla, both you and Mr. Leroux agree that there was a problem with the camera system. Can you just tell the commission how that problem was ultimately resolved?
Right from the word go, a few days after they had installed the entire system, I was supposed to have access to a view of the house from wherever. Of course, that did not work. First week, And I phoned them the following week to make them aware that this system has actually collapsed. They came back to fix it. As soon as they left, the system was down again. I then decided I am not going to pursue this matter of the system that is not working because I had not even paid for it. That was my problem. I had not paid for it. And I had no grounds as a customer to exercise my right to force them to come and sort out the problem. It gave me the opportunity to say to Gavin, remove this system. I will install this system when I need it and when I have the money to do so. Because the system never worked. It never worked. I was listening to the earlier witness who was appearing before the commission, and to me, it appeared as if the technologies that they were using were actually not as conk as what they made them to be. That system never worked, and they removed it.
So if someone was to say that you benefited from these cameras, what will be your comment then?
I've just said that they've never worked. I've just said that they've never worked.
Thank you. I want us to deal with the parliamentary report. You had testified earlier on when you were led in chief that you have difficulties with the report. Chair, I think the report is contained in BOSASA 03. I think it's BOSASA bundle 3124.
Bundle 3, and you are saying page 124.
No, Chair. We're dealing with page 181.
Okay.
This is the committee report, Chair.
Yes, okay.
Mr. Makwetla, are you on the document?
The committee report, yes, I'm on the committee report.
Yes.
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. You had alluded earlier on that you have difficulties with the report, both in terms of procedure and the substance of the report there too. Care to highlight to the commission procedurally what difficulties you have with this report?
I know that last time he did deal with procedural issues. Is there something that he didn't cover that you want him to cover on procedural issues? Mr. Makwetla, am I correct? You did deal with procedural issues that you have with how the report came about, isn't it?
I did, Chair, indeed. What perhaps I should just underline,
yes,
Chair, are the gross irregularities that occurred on this matter.
Yes. Now, what I'm saying is, I know that we dealt with the report last time. Yes. Well, not last week, when you appeared. All I'm simply saying is I don't want us to repeat the same thing. I'm just saying, are there aspects that you did not cover which you would like to cover?
Indeed.
Okay, all right. If you want to cover aspects that you did not cover, that's fine. You can deal with them.
Chair, what I did not make the commission aware is that the report that we are referring to as an exhibit here, I saw the report as I was taking my seat at the commission the last time I appeared for the first time. And I was actually shocked that there is a record of Parliament on the case against me by the Ethics Committee, that there was actually a record of Parliament. As the chair would understand, I explained that from January this year, right up to March, I had to engage lawyers to write to Parliament to share the record of Parliament on this matter. And the commission, and it is attached, has 3 letters that were written to the Speaker of Parliament and the Chair of the Ethics Committee by my lawyers asking for this record. None of those letters were responded to, no replies, no document provided by Parliament. I was actually surprised that they had sent a document purportedly to be a report of this case to the commission. Now, this is the most gross of irregularities committed in Parliament. It is a travesty of justice. It is unprecedented, Chair. It is an unprecedented scandal in Parliament. I am prepared to go to those lengths, because what has happened is that this report, 2 things about them that I want the commission to underline is that according to the rules of the National Assembly, that is the 8th edition of the rules of the National Assembly, which we will share. I have the booklet. They will share. We'll send through to the commission for perusal. Chapter 15 talks about the lapsing of business before the assembly. And it says lapsing of business on the last sitting day of annual session or term of assembly, or when the assembly is dissolved. 1, all motions and all other business other than bills on the order paper on the last sitting day of an annual session of the assembly lapses at the end of that day. 2, all business referred to in sub-rule 1 before the assembly or any assembly committee on the last sitting day of a term of the assembly or when the assembly is being dissolved lapse at the end of that day. The reason I am directing the commission to this, it is because this report was ATC'd a week after Parliament had been dissolved. What had happened, Chair, is that the term of the last Parliament, the 5th Parliament, its term ended on the 20th of May 2019. On that day, all business of the House, it doesn't matter whether it was at the committee level, it was on the way to the assembly, it lapses. Now, what happened is that the committee continues work, at least from what we are told, until the 28th, because I get written by the ethics committee a letter to say, we have met and we have found you guilty. I was shocked. I was at home when I got that. Parliament had adjourned, not adjourned, I'm sorry, had been dissolved. We had started campaigning now for the elections of 2019. I'm sorry, 2019.
When Parliament is dissolved, what is the effect of that? And I know that maybe this might be a legal issue, but you might be able to assist because you are an MP and you have been an MP for a long time. And of course, I think the same thing would happen in a provincial legislature, and you have got experience of that as well. Does a committee continue to have power to do anything after Parliament has been dissolved at the end of a 5-year term?
Chairperson, the answer is no. It does not have those powers, because all committees of Parliament are simply processing body of the work that is before Parliament on behalf of Parliament, and that is why the reports of the committees for as long as they've not been tabled for adoption by the plenary of Parliament, they enjoy no status. So even in relation to this Ethics Committee's report, this report, okay, we put aside the issue about Parliament having been dissolved. Procedurally, this report should have been tabled in the National Assembly, and the National Assembly would have had to adopt, reject, or amend the report. That did not happen, and it was not going to happen because Parliament had been dissolved. So the report had no status. That is why when I pursued the matter with the office of the Speaker to find out from the Speaker, why have I been written a letter by the committee itself? I've not been written a letter because these matters are eventually executed by the Speaker of Parliament as the representing Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament never wrote to me about this decision. And when I checked with the Speaker's office, it had no record of this meeting and this decision. What is even worse is that in the findings or in the sanction that is contained in the report, sanction number 1 is that the Speaker must address me in a sitting of Parliament and order me to make a public apology. It is sanction number 1. But this report, the Speaker's office had no sight of it. It is not there. It was never submitted to the Speaker's office. Not only that, I followed the matter up with the chief whip of my party, the late Mr. Jackson Mthembu. May his soul rest in peace. I checked with him whether he had received a report from the Ethics Committee, because as my whip, the whip of my party in Parliament, he would have been cited of this report by the Ethics Committee to say, take note that one of your members' case that we've been dealing with, this is what is our finding against. He had no record of that. Thirdly, Chair, the report is not signed. This report has names at the end of the people who are supposed to have signed it. It is the Ethics Committee is a joint committee of the National Assembly and the NCOP. The 2 co-chairs.
Just wait, Mr. Makwetla, just Chair, those names will appear at the end of the report at page 186. There's Honorable Makwetla and Honorable Singh at the bottom, Chair, page 186. Chair.
Yes, I can see it, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Makwetla.
Honorable Chairperson, Mr. Humphrey Makwetla, Honorable Member Humphrey Makwetla, is a member of the ANC of my party. I have asked him whether he is aware of this report. He was baffled, he was puzzled. He knew nothing of this report. Mr. Sin, the other name that is attached there, belongs to the IFP. I do not know. I did not have access to him. But at least to this ANC member who is part of this committee, I had a confirmation, no doubt, this report, he does not know about it. But not only that, Chair, it is interesting for me, and I would be happy if this commission can at least force Parliament to produce the minutes of this meeting that discussed my matter and who attended it and when did it take place, because from where I sit and as I am appearing before this commission, I have no doubt that meeting never took place.
Yeah, no, I think Ms. Molefe, it's going to be necessary for the commission to write to Mr. Makwetla and to Mr. Singh to find out what they know about this report, if they can do that by way of an affidavit, each one, and as well as do you know, Mr. Makwetla, whether they are still chairing the ethics committee or not? Or is it other people now?
It is other people, Honorable Chairperson. Mr. Makwetla is no longer a member of parliament. He's actually the speaker of the Buffalo municipality in the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
Mr. Sin, I'm not sure whether he returned to parliament. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. That's fine. I think they should be written to, even if they are no longer in parliament, so that we get the story as to what do they know about this. And then, Ms. Molefe, we need to write to, and in writing to them, if they know something about it, they must also indicate what meetings they were held, which resulted in the report by the committee, and when those meetings were held, and whether there are minutes that they are aware of. And we need to write to the secretary of the commission must write to the current chair or chairs of the ethics committee to establish, or write to the secretary of that committee or parliament to establish if parliament has got minutes of meetings of this committee which dealt with this issue that resulted in this report, and whether there is any transcript of deliberations or evidence that was led before the committee that led to this report. So Ms. Molefe, you can assist in the drafting of the letters for the secretary to be directed to various people so that we can get that. And I think it should be, then we can take it from there. And then when we receive it, Mr. Makwetla can be, through his lawyers, can be furnished with copies. And he can then comment if there's a need for comment.
Noted. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mosigidi?
Mr. Makwetla, just probably the last comment on this report at 5.2, which is page 189, Chair.
Mm-hmm. Yes, continue.
Yes, the essence of what is being said at 5.2 is that the committee also found the member in
I'm sorry, it can't be 189. Do you say 185?
185, Chair.
Okay, and the paragraph? 5.2. Yeah, okay, continue.
Yes, Chair. The crux of it is that the committee found the member to have breached the item as listed there of the code. And it says that when he allowed a company that was contracted to his department to conduct work at his private place, which was not paid for.
Yeah, that is malicious.
What's your comment to that?
Advocate Musikiri, through you, Chair, the report is a 5-page document. The commission will have the time to read the report. It is the shortest of work I've ever encountered at that level. It is actually there's no report. There is no report except for stating what the allegations against this member are, what the member has said, what the code says, the findings, the interrogation of the evidence provided by the member are not anywhere, they are not there in the report. From that, the report just goes straight to sanction. And I am raising this because, Chair, in the rules of the Code of Ethical Conduct, and disclosure of members' interest. It's a booklet. It's here. We'll also forward it to the commission for the commission to see for itself. Chapter 10 of this code of conduct deals with breaches of the code of conduct and the investigation procedures. It has 12 pages. It is the longest chapter of this code. Not a single one of the provisions in this chapter were observed by the committee. It's like the committee just threw the rule book out by the window. Not a single one. 12 pages that guides how the committee must. What is important of those principles that I want to draw the committee's attention to? It's two issues. It says, with respect to procedure for the investigation of complaints, general principle, this procedure is based on and intended to be guided by the principle of promptness, fairness, and consistency. That's the first issue. Promptness. Chair, this matter arose in 2018. The committee wrote to me and said, provide an explanation, which I did. That was the end, Chair. I provided an explanation in 2018, nothing happened, and I thought they are satisfied with the explanation that I provided. A year later, in 2019, a week before the adjournment of Parliament, and that is why this whole, matter is very worrisome. A week before the Parliament is dissolved, in 2019 now, I'm writing a letter to say provide paper trail to say you have paid BOSASA, but also you have engaged the president on this matter, as you allege. I provide that evidence. From there, the committee doesn't say, we are not happy with the evidence you have provided. Can you come and explain yourself? Instead, they proceed to find me guilty. I'm never called to come before the committee. One of the rules says here, Chair, that is the second rule on hearings. Hearings must be held when the facts are in dispute. If the committee found the forensic I provided of the payments to BOSASA not satisfactory, of my engagement with the president's office was actually not satisfactory, why didn't they call me to come and explain myself? Because they were disputing. Nothing of that happened. So, as I'm saying, they just threw out the rule book. If that meeting ever happened, and decided to become a kangaroo court in an institution that is sitting at the apex of advancing democracy in our country. Totally unacceptable, Chair.
No, that's fine. Mr. Mosigeti?
Chair, I don't want to over.
I think I've given you more than enough. Yeah.
Perhaps Mr. Makwetla can just deal with the last topic, hopefully in less than a minute, that I wanted him to converse, or at least we wanted to converse with you, Chair, which is just briefly explain the relationship he had with Mr. Gavin Watson to an extent that it's necessary for this commission.
Well, he did that quite at some length last time. Mr. Makwetla, I thought you did that quite at length last time.
Yes, indeed, Chair. I would, yes.
Chair.
But all what is important, is maybe a detail that was never evident or clearing is that when I met with Mr. Gavin Watson, the day I asked him for this service, and when I discovered that his company also executes domestic security, because I was not aware of that, I was meeting Gavin Watson for the second time in my life. The first time having been the year before when I visited BOSASA with the officials of the department. This was the second time I was meeting with him. I know the Watson brothers, but I never had any exposure to Gavin Watson. I know his brother Ronnie Watson very well. And it's a long story that I can talk about it, but not Gavin Watson.
Okay.
My relationship with Gavin was professional, and to that extent, Chair, I can share with the Commission the issues I took up with Gavin in relation to the corporate social investment of BOSASA, the work that they did in the constituency where I was in Mpumalanga, a whole orphanage of families where parents were perished to the AIDS pandemic. The things that they did to that center, we can send the reports for the Commission to see for itself. I've had a professional relationship and nothing else.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
I think that will be it from us, Chair. We are very much indebted, Chair, for the great indulgence. We thank you so much, Chair.
Yes. No, that's fine. But if there are aspects that maybe you or Mr. Makwetla think were not covered, you could just ask to put in a supplementary affidavit to deal with them. But I think we can stop here. But thank you very much to you and to Mr. Makwetla. And thank you, Ms. Molefe. I think that I will just mention for the benefit of the public that we are done with the hearing of oral evidence, except for about 5 or 6 witnesses, plus the president, whose evidence will be heard later in July. So there will be no further oral evidence this week, nor next week. So this is the end for now, and then it will just be those 5 or 6 witnesses and then the president later in July. But thank you very much, Mr. Musigiti. Thank you very much, Mr. Makwetla. We will now, thank you, Ms. Molefe. We will now adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for indulging us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.